ReCalibur, eco-tools and youth work for collective creativity.
Hi, welcome to this ReCalibur video tutorial on a method called the Way of Counsel. The Way of Counsel is a sharing method focused on empathy and active listening. It's a practice of personal storytelling which turns out to be very effective, especially while working on topics such as personal development and strengthening of communities. It promotes visioning, leadership, conscious communication, mentoring and reflection, collective wisdom, decision-making, honoring achievement, management, and so much more. The method can be used with any kind of group without any age limit. There isn't any restriction about the size of the group, which could potentially range from a minimum of 2 persons to a very big group. Within an educational context, in order to maximize the impact and better support the active participation of all participants, the ideal size of the group would be between 10 and 30 people, and the recommended length from 60 to 90 minutes. It's important to have the participants sitting together in a circle, even better if directly on the floor. It could be good to provide pillows or something similar to make the sitting part more comfortable. Within the circle, create a center, where a number of objects will be placed, chosen by the facilitator. The objects will function as talking, listening pieces, which will pass among the people of the group, identifying the persons who will choose to speak and share within the circle. Despite its simplicity, the Way of Counsel is a practice which requires an accurate preparation, which cannot be left to chance. The prompt of the session, the form of implementation, the presentation of intention, the style of facilitation, the management of the time frame and the group dynamics, these are all elements which need to be structured carefully according to the aim of the session itself and to the background of the group of participants. It has a huge potential which can be neutralized quite easily if one of those elements is neglected, especially the management of the emotions within the group. The practice is not really suitable for practical discussion, debates, general sharing, voting, and large groups unless the facilitator decides to use specific forms of counsel which can facilitate that kind of process. It is important to try to manage the involvement of all participants, inviting those who would eventually decide to not take part in the activity to still have a role as a witness in order to keep them engaged within the process. The participants are invited to sit together in a circle so that everybody can see and be seen by the rest of the group. The facilitator proceeds to the introduction of the practice, which foresees first the presentation of the intentions of the Way of Counsel, which are speaking from the heart, listening with the heart, being spontaneous, being lean of expression, and confidentiality. These intentions represent for the participant the qualities of the attitude which is invited during the session, in order to create a safe space for stories to be shared. Then it follows the presentation of the talking pieces, of its functions and its way of use, and ultimately it follows the clarification in terms of the form and the setting of the session. A counsel session is defined by a time frame which is set up by the facilitator or by the end of the stories, so it can have a variable length. Once that you have cleared out the dynamics and made sure that they have been understood by the whole group, the beginning of the process is marked by an opening ceremony, which has the function of inviting the participant to be as present as possible within the counsel intentions. Starting from that moment, only those who will be holding the talking piece will be allowed to speak, while the others will be invited to direct on that person all of their focus. The facilitator will introduce the prompt of the sharing and open the space to the participants. The choice of the prompt is strictly connected to the aim of the session itself, getting to know each other, sharing, conflict resolution, exploring a specific topic, to the age and of course the composition of the group. The prompt is usually an invitation to share a personal story on a specific topic, which is usually introduced by the formula "share a story of a time when." The participants are invited to speak in first person, focusing as much as possible on their own point of view, their own feelings, sensations, and experiences. The simplest and most popular form used for the sharing is the circle one. when the talking piece is passed from person to person clockwise until a full round has been made within the circle. But the practice foresees a number of different ways of implementation, which is usually chosen according to the needs of the single session. It is important to highlight that the Council was born to support a free form of expression. So the aim is to create within the group an atmosphere which is free of any kind of judgment, where the participants can feel free to express themselves in the most spontaneous way possible, which includes the possibility to remain in silence, to sing or dance, to choose not to share anything, and so on. Once that the time frame has reached its limit, the facilitator will guide the group to the end of the sharing, which often might include an extra round of echo, the invitation to repeat a word or a sentence shared by another participant which resonates in you the most, or a simple round of feelings and sensation, and will mark in a clear way the end of the process, as they did already for the opening. The way of counsel produces meaningful outcomes in the area of personal development and in terms of strengthening the empathy within a group and the development of one's emotional and communicative competences. Even if it cannot absolutely be labeled as therapy, often it can turn out to be an extremely therapeutic tool, and it can cause very strong and intimate emotional responses, both in those who share and in those who listen. For this reason, any debriefing of the activity shouldn't be in any way related or focusing on the content shared, but rather on the form of sharing, looking at how people felt through the process and what they noticed about themselves. The origin of the way of counsel practice is connected to the tradition of gathering in a circle sharing stories, typical of many indigenous cultures all over the world. The model has been readapted over the last 50 years by Jack Zimmerman, Virginia Coyle, and other members of the Ojai Foundation in California. The practice as we know it today is now used for different aims and in many different contexts, from school to communities, families, prisons, corporations, and many more.
ReCalibur, Eco-Tools and Youth Work for Collective Creativity, is co-founded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Commission through the Slovak national agency NIVM.